Next speaker, I don't have to say anything about what teachers have done, even though I've been a teacher, a guidance counselor, an assistant principal, a principal, an assistant superintendent of schools. I have someone here today who could say it more eloquent than I can for all my education at Columbia Teachers College. A gentleman here who's probably done more for our country, and I'm embarrassing him now, I know, than all of us combined. I'm going to get this wrong again. But it's at least, I think, 4,000 hours defending our country in the air as a colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Colonel Karl Brandt, who will tell you what teachers meant to him. You want me to put it up there for you? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you again for being here. First, decency demands that I acknowledge the historic natural disaster and human suffering in the wake of the earthquake, tsunami, and ongoing nuclear plant crisis, soon to be a catastrophe, it would appear, in Japan. Floridians know about natural disasters that occasionally visit this beautiful blue but sometimes extremely violet planet. I extend my sympathies, as do we all. But I read something today that brings this home more immediately about this disaster. Something published on Campaign for America's Future by Dave Johnson. Eternal shock happens. We should be shoring up, not dismantling government. If Japan teaches us anything, it is that things can happen at any moment, and when they do, we all need each other. We should be shoring up our public structures, our infrastructures, our protections and empowerments. That is what government is and what it does and what we need. Thank you, thank you. I stand before you as a proud American who would not be here if not for Jacksonville Public Schools, the University of Florida, and the teachers and professors who inspired me. In particular, there was my high school history teacher who believed in me and who was a mentor and role model. My own father, a troubled man and alcoholic, was absent. With a fine education, my degree, and an ROTC commission as a second lieutenant, I swore to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, for every citizen regardless of race, creed, or color, and it goes without saying, status in life, as a pilot in the U.S. Air Force, including a combat tour in Vietnam. But I fear for my country when so much wealth is concentrated in the top 2%. The middle class is under siege, and our governor and legislative leaders vilify and demean our public employees, especially teachers, firemen, and policemen, and by implication, everyone who serves in government or the public sector, including especially nurses. Nurses! And my mother was a nurse. You all know who caused our current difficulties. Wall Street, the failure to regulate its excesses, stupidity, and bad judgment, knowing we taxpayers would bail them out, and we did. Yet, not one has been prosecuted that I know of. Profits and obscenely ridiculous bonuses have returned to Wall Street. And yet, the governor proposes unconscionable cuts in education, attacks public employees as being overpaid, and wants to exempt Florida from the very modest health care reform and to return all Floridians to his for-profit model, featuring unbridled greed and corruption, and the source of his wealth that bought his governorship. Make no mistake, this is a blatant attack on the middle class and all working people. And it is all in the guise of, we're broke. We are not broke. Neither the state nor the federal government is broke. But how the wealth is distributed and who benefits from government is broken and grossly distorted. And all but the few at the top are suffering for something they had nothing to do and did not cause. That includes veterans returning from 2 wars, one of which was unjust and should never have been started, and who we have treated shamefully. Sacrifice has not been shared. Promises were made, but promises have not been kept. Too many veterans and hard-working citizens have been victimized by predatory lending, predatory payday lending, by credit card companies and banks with unfair and undisclosed fees. Yeah, right. Deregulate everything. Usurious interest rates, mortgage fraud, and the big banks and their enablers and the snake oil salesmen on Wall Street. This recession was preventable and predictable. And now our state's leaders propose to punish the people who did not cause it and comfort the already comfortable in their McMansions and corporate boardrooms. I did not serve my country for only the top 2% of families, nor to witness public employees being scapegoated. It is a myth that they are overpaid. If anything, teachers in particular are underpaid and underappreciated. Read today's St. Pete Times, Nicholas Kristof, Pay Teachers More. Tallahassee, are you listening? Listen up now. As Michael Moore said to the demonstrators in Madison, Wisconsin, we have had it. Thank you all. Keep working and demonstrating. Take back our democracy. We must defend the American dream. Thank you very much.
Colonel Brandt, I know I'm speaking for everyone here. The car's on the road. Thank you so much for everything you've done and are continuing to do for all of us. Thank you. I want you to know that this is not an issue really of Democrats and Republicans, conservatives or liberals. This is an issue of right or wrong. This gentleman right in front of me in the black shirt, take that sign, come out front with it. I owe this to Miss Onufri, my 5th grade art teacher. Turn around. This is what he was talking about. Public employees didn't cause this recession, and now they're being asked to pay for it, while the people on Wall Street continue to get their bonuses. So if I can encourage you to stay there for the next hour. Thank you very much. Now, in keeping with my saying, this was not a political issue. We invited a Republican and a Democratic leader who support what you're all here for. The Republican we invited spoke for us at a rally before this down in Largo at the Cultural Center. When they heard he was speaking today, all of a sudden a budget meeting was arranged for the county commissioners to start at 5:30. I want to mention that gentleman's name. His wife is a school teacher in Clearwater High School, and he's a supporter of everything you're standing for, a newly elected Commissioner, Norman Roach. The Democratic speaker didn't have anybody call him to any meeting, so he's here today. The chairman of the Pinellas County Democratic Party, Mark Hanisee.
Okay, right here.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. Let me start by saying, love all these signs. This guy's Scott. I'm not talking in a partisan manner. He has an agenda. The teachers are the first line of victims. You all know that. Wisconsin, that's symbolic of what's going to happen with the rest of the country is, as the Colonel said, Van said, and Norm on the other side of the aisle is a very dear friend of mine. This is preservation of the middle class. This is where we're at. You have the teachers, you have the police people, you have the firefighters, you have our veterans that the Colonel talked about. My father was a veteran. I'm appalled at the fact that they're going after you all, and my expertise is employee benefits. Believe me, they're not going to just go after the pension plans with the government employees. That 1-2% that the Colonel was talking about, and I said this to my board last Wednesday night at the board meeting, next, corporate America is going to start figuring out how to get rid of the liability for the pension plans that they have. And I see the Teamsters there. The Teamsters are very dear friends of mine. They're a very big backer of my campaign to be the chair of the party. I know the whole board. They're great guys. I saw Jimmy Hoffa speak last August, and he really laid it on the line. It's a war. Make no mistake, the middle class is at risk. It's a war. You just happen to be the first victims of the war. I believe the Colonel said something about the top 1%. I work in corporate America. If you don't think we that work in corporations hasn't turned into white-collar sweatshops, it's the same as what they're doing to you teachers. They're working us long hours. The money doesn't trickle down. I think Reagan called it supply-side economics, which was an excuse to give a tax cut for the very wealthy with the idea they were going to put the money back into the business. Guess what happened to the money? They got lots more, right? That's correct. 8 million is the number. Anybody see the movie Inside Job that they did, that documentary? The Colonel was talking about avarice and greed and how we got here. Wall Street took all of these loans, okay? They were subprime loans, packaged them with preferred loans. They're called derivatives, and then they sold them off to the investment bankers, and the investment bankers sold the paper, and then when the bottom fell out, guess who was left holding the bag? All of us, okay? They made tons of money. It's greed and avarice, and now we have this recession, which is really depression, because a recession doesn't last this long, okay? And this new governor, I think the comment was also made by the Colonel, one of the other speakers, I'm in employee benefits health care. This guy bilks the federal government out of $1 gazillion. Do you have any idea the number of claims that he denied that he had no knowledge of? You couldn't fit it in that gymnasium over there, okay? He leaves HCA, takes his $1 gazillion, and then you know what he did with the profits from that? He bought the governor's race. So what I'm telling you, that I tell everybody, we've all got to wake up. Shelley was saying scream until they can hear you in Madison and all the other places. My question is, what is it going to take to wake everybody up? Do we all have to lose all of our assets? Do we have to lose the middle class? My Teamster friend over here can tell you the unions are fighting the good fight, but it's going to take more than just the teachers, the Teamsters, the unions. It's going to take all of us. So what we have to leave this rally with doing is to tell everybody, because we got to get everybody engaged. Because we, in our own state, we got to stop that guy in Tallahassee, because if he will bilk the federal government out of all that money, he's going to bilk us next. And I'm going to tell you what I tell the party, and again, I'm not getting partisan here, it's time for us to draw the line in the sand. It's time for them to stop defining us and for us to define ourselves. And with that, I challenge you to go out there and find more people like us and take the war to them. Thank you very much.